Before I start, I'm just going to say there'll be some really interesting overlap, I think, between what Hope has said and what is coming from her data and what teachers have been telling us this year. And in terms of the hope associated with the NICE guidelines, there's some interesting and hopeful things from our point of view that those speakers were also saying. So I'm Joanna Woodhouse, and I'm a SENCO and qualified teacher. I'm a member of the National Acquired Brain Injury and Learning in Education Syndicate, and I'm co-chair of the Educational Professionals Advisory Group. I'm also a parent of a daughter with an acquired brain injury. Very briefly, I'm going to talk about these 4 areas: why we formed the Educational Professional Group and the context of that, the group itself and what our remit is and some of our aims, and then look over this last academic year, about what the teachers that we've been working with have been telling us. And where I can, I will point to some areas that you as potentially as clinicians and other professionals working with young people with acquired brain injury can help and support in education. And then lastly, I'll finish to talk briefly about our influence, hoping to influence the national picture, and then pass on to colleagues to talk further about that. So why did we form the Educational Professionals Group? Well, part of the wider Enables vision was to form steering groups to represent both young people and their experience and educators who would be able to collaborate and co-produce materials and resources. The research informed us about the scale of the need, and you can hear that in the previous slides. And lastly, our Young Experts by Experience group, and you will be hearing from a member of those after me. The unique nature of childhood acquired brain injury was a very important starting point for us, and Emily has already briefly outlined some of the detail of that. But we're talking here about damage to the brain during childhood that can affect future growth and development, and its sudden acquired nature and the cumulative impact with the changing and developing and emerging deficits over time that concur at the same time as a child's journey through education. We know that there are about 40,000 children who are seen at hospital every year with an acquired brain injury. And that means one person or one child per class has experienced an ABI by the time they complete their education. We also know that schools are vital for relearning skills and helping to compensate for acquired difficulties. It's estimated that 70% of rehab takes place in school. We also know there is a lack of teacher knowledge and understanding about acquired brain injury, and that often leads to the misinterpretations of behaviour and the misattributions that Hope has already mentioned. And we know that this lack of information and knowledge and education of teachers can prevent children from receiving the right support at the right time when they're in school. So it felt timely for us to engage with and consult with those in education. So the professional group was formed in 2024, and there are currently 7 members from the education sector representing primary, secondary and specialist settings. We're aiming for a wide geographical coverage, so those members come from right across the UK. We meet monthly online, and we also have a growing number of educators who form the Educational Professionals Advisory Network, who have widened our scope and input of information. All of us have a shared desire to change outcomes for young people with an ABI within the education system. Our aims are to provide input to content for resources, training and research projects, to identify key lobbying priorities, to give input to UCABIF and Department of Education campaigns. For example, we've just contributed to the review of special educational needs, and to attend parliamentary meetings to advocate for young people with an ABI. So what have teachers told us during the last year? We've now been working with teachers for over a year, listening to their concerns, their ideas and their wisdom. We know educators and clinicians have a shared common goal to achieve the best outcome for children following ABI. Teachers know that outcome is best facilitated by successfully returning children to an appropriate educational setting. They are calling for help and support in that endeavour. And these are just some of the things that they've told us, some of the things that we've learnt, and some of the areas we've chosen to focus on as a result of those conversations. In 25 years of teaching, I have never heard of ABI. This is something that was said to us during the course of some training we recently undertook. We know that 1 in 3 teachers knew nothing about acquired brain injury, and the understanding of ABI is very limited amongst educators. There is a lack of consistent teacher training across the system. That's in initial teacher training, in SENCO training, and in ongoing CPD. The unique nature of childhood ABI means that teacher education is key. Teachers want our help with this. And it's clear that teachers have the professional skills to support these children, but they lack the knowledge of ABI to apply those skills appropriately. If you're working with teachers in a rehabilitation context, your professional knowledge can be really vital in educating and informing teachers about the nature of acquired brain injury. What's the plan? Teachers lack knowledge and experience of how to plan a return to education. There's a national inconsistency of the use of planning pathways, if they exist at all. 32 out of 82 young people surveyed only that number had an educational planning meeting prior to discharge from a health setting. And we know from teachers and from our UBB group, our young people, our young experts in acquired brain injury, that this picture hasn't changed a great deal. However, such plans do exist, and recommending those to teachers can be very helpful. I've just included 2 on this slide. One is our own Enables ABI return pack of materials for teachers working with young people to rehab them into school, and then the Nottinghamshire Sam White pathway, which offers a really important and detailed clinical and medical template for those working with educators to bring children back into schools. Helping teachers to form the plan is really important. Your advocacy and professional knowledge can give schools a great deal of confidence in this area. Providing a clear outline of a young person's ABI and its impact is highly valuable to teachers. Advice on a phased, slow-paced, planned and supported return to education and support with that and encouragement is useful. The child must be at the heart, but it's good to encourage a cautious but not too cautious approach. It's our experience that teachers and schools are often very nervous and anxious about rehabilitating these children back into school. So any kind of professional reassurance that you can give is welcome. Help schools understand that even when the return looks different to a normal school day, it can be vital in terms of a child's rehabilitation. Half an hour once a week will be more important than nothing at all. And something that clinicians and professionals can help enormously with in terms of school is appointment scheduling. Many young people and many teachers spoke to us of a clash between regular and repeated appointments for rehabilitation with specific subjects week on week. So an awareness of curriculum and social times of the young people you're working with in terms of those rehab appointments can be really important so that you're not hitting the same subjects on the curriculum or the same social period week on week. So how do we recognise and support fatigue? Teachers asked us this on many occasions. Fatigue is common to all types of ABI, and teachers were asking for guidance on how to identify and support fatigue. Helping schools to understand the nature of fatigue and its many facets can be really useful. Schools need to be aware that every child is unique in their experience and impact of fatigue, and a bespoke plan will be needed for each child to support that. Knowledge regarding the individual presentation of fatigue as a result can be really vital in helping schools to devise that plan. This specific feedback from teachers and from our UBB group has led us to develop some resources specifically designed this year to support teachers in recognising, supporting and helping children with fatigue. Support for exams is complicated. The inflexibility of the current exam system doesn't support the needs of children with ABI. It's difficult for schools to be flexible around the start times and the duration of exams. Reducing the number of subjects studied is also difficult, and deferring a student for a year or for a period of time is not encouraged. In particular, there are the constraints of what's called the Progress 8 data capture system. Exam access arrangements often hinder rather than support students with an ABI. A child with fatigue is not best served by being awarded extra time, for example. So medical advocacy is powerful in giving schools confidence to make these changes, to understand what might be needed, or to apply for those changes to be made. Teachers asked us how to record these young people in school systems. They are perfectly aware, if they have a child within their cohort with an ABI, of the difficulties that Hope spoke of recording those children in school data. There is currently no means for a child with an ABI to be recorded in school systems. ABI is not listed in the SEND Code of Practice, which is a piece of legislation that governs SEND provision in this country. And there is no category on the compulsory quarterly SEND school census that every school will be completing. So what does that mean? Well, it accentuates the invisibility of ABI in schools. Schools themselves may not consider young people with an ABI in any kind of SEND planning and provision. No government data is being collected to support the planning or funding and provision. And children with an ABI cannot currently be tracked through their education journey. It's difficult to obtain funding. The sudden nature of childhood ABI means that this required and an immediate response to meet their child's new need is very difficult and very challenging. Schools find it difficult to find appropriate funding and provision to support these new needs. Why? Well, the current SEND system is not responsive to an immediate need, relying heavily on evidence of prior need and data captured over time. The graduated response, which is a cycle of assess, plan, do, review, is a particular cause of inequality for these young people. And the way that SEND support is funded in the UK is complex and regionally variable, which leads to a postcode lottery. But the SEND system is currently under review and change, and we are optimistic that this will present not just challenges, but also opportunities to move forward from that situation. And finally, before I pass on to our next speakers, I'm going to just finish by saying a few things about how we hope to influence the national picture through our work this year. So our rewarding work with teachers has led to us writing an open letter of Parliament as we ended the academic year this summer. So we're currently asking the Department of Education to consider properly categorising children with an acquired brain injury through an amendment to the school census. Consistency across local authorities for recognition, training and access to SEND provision for young people with an ABI through ensuring all professionals have training to a minimum level of awareness, providing mandatory training in greater depth for SENCOs and allowing access to funding and interim funding without a recourse to an education, health and care plan. And finally, that there should be an agreed return to school pathway led and monitored by a named lead professional to provide a consistent approach and support for the individuals, their families and their teachers.